What if one of history's most famous villains isn't who we've been told he is? In I Was Not Satan, the real story of Lucifer, Dr. W. J. Brendel traces the story of Lucifer through ancient texts, biblical translations, folklore, and centuries of tradition to separate documented history from popular belief. If you enjoy exploring mysteries with evidence instead of assumptions, this book will challenge what you think you know. I Was Not Satan, the real story of Lucifer is available now on Amazon, Barnes& Noble, and other major booksellers. Learn more at wjbrendel.com.
Sometimes the questions that stay with you the longest aren't the ones you can't answer. They're the ones you thought you had answered. Well, until a few days later when you realize you really hadn't. So, this episode isn't about whether artificial intelligence is going to take over the world. It's about something much quieter and maybe much more important. It's about what happens when we stop asking questions. Welcome back to Forever Paranormal, where we know Natinak is more than a myth, and every story is a door between worlds. This week, we step through a conversation that starts with artificial intelligence, but may end with one of the oldest questions ever asked. What counts as evidence? Hello there, Deb.
Hello.
So, did you bring us any questions, comments, concerns, or anything like that this week, or?
Yes, from the world of the bizarre comes a news report out of England where a man obsessed with vampires was caught dumping animal carcasses on the doorsteps of local churches.
Okay, then.
This man identified himself as Count Dracula when he appeared in court.
Sorry.
Apparently, he believed what is seen in the movies and that he would live forever if he drank the blood of animals. He was caught by police surveillance that was set up to watch the churches to find the person responsible for the disturbing acts. This guy even placed inverted crosses and tarot cards at some of the crime scenes. He was identified by the DNA found on some of the animal remains. A psychiatrist who testified at his trial described him as having complex mental difficulties.
Complex mental difficulties. You think?
Just a little.
The guy thinks he's Count Dracula? I mean, there are vampires out there, and I'm not saying the Count Dracula type of vampires, but there are real humans that are into vampirism and blood drinking and this and that. There's a whole thing about that, but I'm not going to go into any of that. But this guy thinking he's Dracula, that's just something else.
Yeah.
But Deb, you started something that's been rattling around in my head for the last couple of weeks.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Remember when you brought up those stories about AI systems trying to manipulate other AI systems?
Yes, and I asked you what you thought.
And I gave you a pretty short answer.
You did.
Well, my first reaction is still the same. If the people creating these systems recognize there are risks, then I think they have a moral responsibility to build safeguards into those systems. But after I had time to think about it, I realized the issue was bigger than whether AI could be controlled. The bigger issue was whether humans would know when to question it.
I remember that comment and agreed.
Yeah, but after we finished recording, I realized something. I never actually answered your question.
I guess you really didn't.
And I've been thinking about it ever since. I touched on part of this in an article on wjbrendel.com a while back, but I don't think I ever finished the thought. So, this week, let's finish it.
I'm listening.
The funny thing is, though, that the more I thought about this, the more I realized the hacking stories themselves weren't the part that kept bothering me. They were certainly interesting, yeah, but I think they raise legitimate questions about how these systems interact with each other and what safeguards need to exist. But the question that coming back to me was a little different. It wasn't just, can AI do something unexpected? It was, what happens when we start trusting the answers these systems give us without fully understanding how they got there?
Okay, explain.
Well, I use AI almost every day, believe it or not. Researching books, looking through historical sources, organizing notes, finding connections I might have missed or something. It's because it just became another research tool sitting on my desk, right alongside the reference books and all my databases and stuff.
You also argue with it almost every day.
Well, yeah, more often than I admit.
I've heard you. More than once I've walked past your office and heard you say, no, that's not what I asked.
Guilty.
So why keep using it if it keeps getting things wrong?
Because every tool gets things wrong. That's what people miss. Search engines do. History books do. Eyewitnesses certainly do. Even experts disagree with one another. None of that makes a tool useless, Deb. It just means you have to understand what it's good at and where its blind spots are.
Okay, that's fair.
For me, AI is remarkable at sorting through enormous amounts of information. It can spot relationships in seconds that would take me days or weeks to notice. Sometimes it points me toward a source I would have never found otherwise. Sometimes it challenges an assumption I've made. And that's valuable because it forces me to go back and verify what I think I know.
So far, you're making a pretty good sales pitch.
That's because I genuinely think it's one of the most useful research tools we've ever had.
And there's a but.
But yeah, there's one thing I've learned from working with it, and I don't think we talk about it nearly enough.
What's that?
When AI gets something wrong, it doesn't know it's wrong, and it gets it wrong a lot.
To be fair, neither do a lot of people.
Well, exactly.
So, what is the difference?
Well, sometimes there isn't one, but sometimes there is. If you and I, for example, are investigating something strange, one of us eventually gets that little feeling in the back of our mind and says, hold on, something doesn't fit or something doesn't feel right. Maybe we've overlooked a witness. Maybe the timeline doesn't make sense. Maybe we're just forcing two facts together because we want them to connect.
You're talking about intuition.
Partly, yeah, but I'm also talking about experience and I'm talking about doubt and the willingness to stop and say, hey, you know what? I need to check that again.
You're saying AI doesn't have that moment.
Exactly. Not in the way people do. I mean, it gives you what it believes is the best answer based on the information it has, right? But if that information is incomplete, contradictory, or simply missing something important, it'll still produce an answer because that's what it does. It doesn't lean back in its chair and say, hey, I'm not entirely convinced. Sometimes it just makes it up.
It sounds confident even when it shouldn't be.
Exactly. And if you've worked with AI very much, you've probably seen that happen. It'll state something with absolute confidence that just simply isn't true. Not because it's trying to deceive you, even though I've typed into mine, you big liar, but it just doesn't even know it made a mistake.
That's a little unsettling.
It is, not because it makes AI dangerous, but because confidence has a funny way of influencing people. We naturally assume confident answers are better answers.
Even when they're not.
especially when they're not. The old saying of trust but verify really comes into play here. I mean, one of the first things I do whenever AI tells me something I don't already know is ask it where it got its information from.
Every single time?
Pretty much, if it can't point me to the source I can check for myself, I don't treat it as an established fact. Like I said, if it tells me something I don't already know or know about, I almost immediately ask, where did you get that? Sometimes it'll point me to a book, a journal, an article, or a government report or something, or an archived newspaper that I can go read myself. That is incredibly valuable.
And sometimes?
Sometimes the source doesn't actually say what the AI claimed it said.
Seriously?
Oh yeah, it'll interpret a paragraph one way when I interpret it another. Or it'll connect two sources that really shouldn't be connected. Most of the time though, it's not making anything up on purpose. It's trying to build the most likely answer for the information it has.
Which sounds an awful lot like what people do.
Exactly. That's why I don't think this is really just an AI problem. It's a reasoning problem. We all do it. We fill in the gaps. We all connect dots. Sometimes we're right. Sometimes we're drawing lines between dots that don't actually belong together.
That's true whether you're investigating a murder or trying to figure out whether your neighbor's dog got into your trash.
Yeah, exactly. The difference is that sometimes people will stop halfway through and think, wait a minute, I may be wrong about this. AI doesn't have that little voice in the back of its mind. It doesn't second guess itself unless someone challenges it.
Fortunately for you, that is something you enjoy.
Well, yeah, maybe a little too much, but that's when my thinking started going somewhere I hadn't expected it.
Which was?
Imagine you're sitting in an intelligence center somewhere. You have satellite imagery, which is intercepted communications. You got thermal images, reports from people on the ground. You've got radar returns, thousands of pieces of information coming in every minute. And no single person can process all of that in real time anymore.
So that's where exactly AI shines.
Absolutely. It's probably better than any human being who's ever lived at finding patterns in huge amounts of data. That's not the part that concerns me.
Well, what is? Where did your mind go after that?
Somewhere I wasn't expecting.
Which was?
Well, I stopped thinking about artificial intelligence and I started thinking about intelligence.
Is there a difference?
A huge difference. Artificial intelligence is just another tool. Intelligence, whether it's military, law enforcement, or even scientific research, has always been about trying to make sense of incomplete information.
Nobody ever has the whole picture.
Exactly. Think about every detective movie you've ever seen, or the Hardy Boy books and things like that. The detective doesn't have all the evidence on day one. They have fragments, they have fingerprints, a witness there, maybe a security camera that caught half of what happened. The job is putting all those pieces together without fooling yourself.
And sometimes they get it wrong.
Yeah, sometimes spectacularly wrong.
So AI isn't changing the process.
No, it's changing the speed.
Can you explain?
Yeah, so 50 years ago, for example, an analyst might have had a handful of photographs, a few intercepted radio messages, and reports from people on the ground. Today, they might have satellite imagery, drone video, radar returns, thermal imaging, cell phone data, social media posts, financial records. They got millions of pieces of information arriving faster than any person could possibly process it.
That list sounds huge.
Which is exactly why AI is becoming such a valuable tool. It can sort through all of that information in seconds and find relationships that human analysts would probably never notice.
Sounds like a good thing.
Well, it is, until one question gets overlooked.
Which is?
Did it find evidence or did it find a pattern?
In this conversation, aren't they the same thing?
No, they're not.
Okay, that's where I'm lost.
Okay, let's go back to imagining intelligence again, and the analysts are watching a building somewhere in a war zone. Over several days, they noticed trucks arriving late at night. Thermal cameras show unusual heat signatures after midnight. Radio intercepts suggest military equipment may be in the area. Satellite images show people are moving large objects into the building. Now, ask yourself, has anyone actually seen a missile launcher?
No.
Has anyone photographed one?
No.
Has anyone walked inside that building and confirmed one is there?
No.
But every piece of information points in the same direction.
So AI says there's probably a launcher inside.
Exactly.
But probably isn't the same as there is.
And that's the entire point. AI might produce the correct answer. It might save lives by finding something people missed. Or it may simply be recognizing a pattern that looks convincing because every piece of incomplete evidence happens to point the same way. Then all of a sudden, you fire missiles into a school full of kids.
So the danger isn't necessarily AI.
No, the danger is us forgetting the difference between probability and proof.
You know, now that you say it that way, that's not just a military problem,
No, it isn't.
because that's basically the same argument we have on this show all the time. Something happens, people collect information, and then they try to figure out what it means.
Exactly.
A strange picture, a strange sound, a witness report, something on a thermal camera. People see those things and immediately start asking, what is it?
And sometimes that's the right question. But sometimes that question will come a little too early.
What do you mean?
Well, sometimes the first question shouldn't be, what is it? Sometimes it should be, what do we actually know?
And that's harder.
It is, because people naturally want answers, especially with something strange. If you see something you can't explain, the brain immediately wants to finish the story.
Oh, how we hate unanswered questions.
Oh, we really do. I mean, humans are pattern-seeking creatures. It's one of the reasons we're so successful. We see patterns, we make connections. We use those connections to survive.
But sometimes we see patterns that aren't there.
Exactly. And that's where things get interesting.
So you're saying AI isn't really creating a new problem.
Right. It's amplifying an old one.
Can you explain that?
Sure. Because for thousands of years, people have looked at the unknown and tried to interpret it, right? Sometimes they were right, sometimes they were wrong. The difference today is that we have tools that can process information at a scale humans never could before.
Which sounds like it should help.
It can, but a fast way to analyze information doesn't automatically mean a better understanding of that information.
Because it can still make the wrong connection.
Exactly.
You know, this is a paranormal show, so give me a paranormal example.
Well, fair enough then. Let's say someone gives an AI every reported Bigfoot sighting there ever was from the last 100 years, right? They put it in some AI model, thousands of witness accounts, locations, time of year, weather conditions, descriptions, everything.
Okay.
Well, the AI might find patterns that humans missed.
Which could be useful.
Absolutely. Maybe it finds something meaningful. Maybe certain reports cluster around certain environments or conditions. That's worth investigating.
But
But it might also find a pattern that only looks meaningful because there's so much information available.
so it could create a connection that isn't really there.
Exactly. I mean, it could look at thousands of unrelated reports and build a story that sounds incredibly convincing.
Even if the story's wrong.
Exactly.
That is unsettling.
It is. But here's the thing, Deb. The same question applies to humans. An investigator can do the exact same thing. We can collect 20 witness reports, convince ourselves they all prove the same thing when they really don't.
So AI isn't replacing human mistakes.
No, it's just giving us a new and fast way to make them.
It's an uncomfortable thought if you think about it.
Yeah, it is, but I think it's an important one.
So, if AI is already becoming part of a paranormal investigation, how should investigators use it?
Well, I think the same way they should use any other tool, very carefully.
And we're already seeing that used, right?
Yeah, absolutely. People are using AI already to enhance photographs, analyze audio recordings, review video footage, and look for patterns across large collections of reports and the data.
So, this isn't some future science fiction type idea.
No, it's already here.
Then, what is the concern?
The concern to me is the same one we've been talking about this entire episode. It's a tool, and it can help you see something you missed, but it can also make you believe you found something that isn't there.
Give me an example, please.
Let's take EVPs. Someone records an audio clip during an investigation and runs it through an AI system. The AI analyzes the sound and says, there appears to be a voice or something saying, help me.
Well, that would get people's attention.
It would. And I'm not saying it couldn't be something interesting. Maybe it is. But the important question is not just, did I hear something? Did the AI hear something?
What's the question?
Why did it hear that?
Okay, explain.
Well, the question comes down to, was there actually a voice in the recording? Was it interpreting random background noise? Did the system know what it was looking for before it analyzed the sound? Because it learns all the time. Did the person listening already expect a certain answer?
Well, considering what I've heard on these shows that you watch, they always seem to hear something that I don't hear. So I'm assuming AI is finding a pattern.
Exactly. But a pattern is not automatically evidence.
That phrase keeps coming back.
Because I think it's the heart of this whole discussion. Whether we're talking about military intelligence, science research, or paranormal investigation, the challenge is the same. We have to separate what we know from what we think we know.
What about photographs? That's probably where people are going to use AI the most, don't you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. Let's take image enhancement, because it is probably going to become a huge part of investigations. I know they're already using it, looking at UFO stuff and everything else. And again, excuse me, it can be incredibly useful. A blurry image might contain details that were impossible to see before.
But
But when an AI improves an image, we have to understand what it's actually doing. Sometimes it is just clarifying information that is already there. Sometimes, though, it's making a prediction about what the missing information probably looked like.
and those are two very different things.
Exactly. Because if you sharpen a photograph and reveal a detail that was already captured by the camera, well, that's one thing. If the system fills in missing information based on what it thinks should be there, that's something else entirely.
So the question becomes whether we're seeing the original evidence or the interpretation of the evidence.
Exactly.
That's a pretty important distinction.
It is. And honestly, I think this is where investigators are going to have to become more disciplined, really, not less. The technology is going to get better. It already has. It keeps evolving. The tools are going to become more impressive, but the need for critical thinking, well, it doesn't disappear just because the machine is more advanced.
Actually, it might become more important.
Well, I think it will.
You know, the more we've talked about this, the less this feels like an AI conversation.
I agree.
It feels more like a conversation about judgment,
I think that's exactly what it is, Deb.
because the technology is going to keep getting better.
It is, and I honestly think AI is going to become one of the most valuable tools we've ever created. I don't want people walking away from this episode thinking I'm against it.
You're definitely not.
No, I use it constantly, and it's helped me research, organize ideas, challenge my own assumptions, and find things I might have missed. I think we're going to see some incredible things from it. But one thing I do know is it never, ever gives you everything the first time. You have to keep questioning it over and over and over again till it just goes away from the typical Google search. When you want deeper research and stuff, you've got to keep pushing it. It won't automatically give that to you. But every powerful tool comes with responsibility.
And the responsibility isn't just building the tool.
Right, it's understanding the tool.
Understanding what it can do and what it can't.
Exactly, because the biggest mistake we can make is assuming that a more advanced tool automatically means a more accurate answer.
Which brings us back to the question you've been asking since we started.
Yeah,
How do we know?
well, Deb, that's the right question.
Whether we're looking at military intelligence, a scientific discovery, a witness account, or something caught during a paranormal investigation.
Well, yeah, because the technology changes, the situation changes, but the responsibility stays the same. We have to separate what we actually know from what we believe might be true.
And that's not easy.
No, it's not. Humans have always struggled with that. We've always searched for patterns. We've always tried to make sense of things we just don't understand. That's part of what makes us curious.
It's also what gets us into trouble.
Exactly.
So maybe AI isn't the thing we should be afraid of.
Yeah. Maybe the bigger challenge is making sure we don't stop thinking just because something else can think faster. We still have to think.
And that's a pretty good place to leave this one.
Well, yeah, I think so too.
Because whether we're talking about a machine analyzing a battlefield, a scientist looking at data, or someone investigating a possible haunting, the question is still the same.
Where does the evidence end?
And where does the interpretation begin?
And maybe that's the question we need to keep asking these tools as they become part of our lives.
Until next time.
Yeah, until next time when we discuss another tale yet to be told.